we will explore some vital questions which each individual must ask himself. The first one is, this is the question you must ask yourself, each one of you, am I working against my true life interests without seeing it? Am I doing things, saying things? Am I living a kind of life that of all things is working against me and I don't see it? Don't you suppose it'd be quite a shock, quite a revelation to you if you found out that after all these years here, you've been living exactly opposite to what is authentically best for you? Let me tell you that it is a fact that human beings, from the day they come into this world, grow up, go out into the world and get married and go to work, travel, there is a flood within them of anti-self. Flood of emotions, of thoughts, of actions. You know, you read in the paper and you see on television news about crime against society. Some gang or some individual robs a bank or assaults someone. And it's very commonplace. Listen to the news every night on television or radio, and all you hear about, at the start at least, is the major crime of the day. Loaded with it. Hundreds of crimes, thousands, varieties. Have you ever in your life heard a news story about an individual's crime against himself? You never have, and you never will in the media out there. We're going to talk about that tonight so that you begin to understand, take the shock, if necessary, of seeing what you have done against your true interest. Now, why do you do that? Why do you do things against yourself? Because you don't know what your true interests are? You actually believe. You believe that worry, you believe that conflict, you believe that ego gratification is for your benefit. You must believe it, because this is what you spend your life doing. Haven't you? Don't? Well, come along with me here. You're in this with me. Don't you agree that you put anxiety, that you put envy, that you put self-pity first in your life? What went through you today but these things that we've been describing? You think of the term self-crime, and maybe that will begin to shock you awake. Now, the world out there isn't going to go along with this. It's not interested in it. How many people do you know who would turn off the crime news on television and sit down quietly in the chair and consider how everything they do and think is against their true interests? Maybe I better tell you what the true interests are. They have to do with something higher than this social world that you live in. True interests have to do with something beyond buying a new dress or a new coat or getting a new home or impressing someone or getting elected to office. Maybe you don't realize something. I'd better go into it a little bit. Maybe you don't understand that there really, truly, I'm telling you the truth now, there really is such a thing as a spiritual life. Really, you didn't know that. You've heard of religion, of course. You've heard of churches. You've heard of hymns. Did you know that there's such a thing as an authentic spiritual life? Well, if you haven't, I can understand it, because you don't see very much of it. And you perhaps have not seen any of it at all in your life, or even a wish for it. This means the word investigation into, even to what we've covered up until now, the investigation of your own life, of your own mistakes, of your own anti-self attitudes and beliefs and actions. You had better, or for your sake, you had better for your sake begin to examine and see exactly what you are doing against yourself with the kind of facial expression that you go around with. That defeat and that crying and that anger and that burning and that pressing down. I've given you an opportunity right now to begin the examination, to see that it exists inside of you so that you no longer have to follow the world down into the swamp, which is where it lives. Well, I'll ask you, where do you live? I'm talking about internally, not your residential street and address. Where do you live internally? Where did you live internally for the last several days? Were you anxious about something? You know you were. That's where you were living. Did you feel like retreating from the world, kind of hiding out? Did you feel like there's all kinds of pressures inside of you, and your usual habit is to go out and try to find someone to talk with about it? Let me suggest at the very start here now that you stop talking your life away. That's a very serious offense against yourself. All this energy going into ideas and into words. Have the courage to stop right now, give yourself a jolt, and say, you know, I understand a little bit. I have been stealing my own energy away from authentic self-development, from authentic change. The world that you inhabit right now, all these millions of people around the world are doing the wrong thing, and why don't you stop following them? Oh, you didn't know you were. You thought you were following your own individuality. You have none. You don't have true individuality. What you have are the same problems and the difficulties that everyone else has. It's a very common experience to be troubled, isn't it? So how are you different? You can start to be different. You can start to see what true individuality is by understanding the fact that you have indeed followed anybody and anything who promised you something in the future, who promised you something different and then asked you for payment in return for it. And you've been doing that. You've paid a pretty high price, and you can stop. Let me give you an illustration of what this world is really like. There was a chief angel up in heaven, and he had an assignment. So he called in one of his deputy angels, called him in and said, Deputy, I have an assignment for you. I want you to go down to the land of darkness and carry out the work that you've carried out before down there. And the minute he said land of darkness, the deputy angel sighed and he said, oh, please, Chief, I've been there before. I know what a rough assignment it is. And the chief said, look, somebody has to do it. You've done good work in the past. I want you to go down again and give it another try. So the deputy said, fine, all right, thank you, I'll go. And the chief said, if you want, you can take someone else with you, take a friend to give you a helping hand, helping wing. The chief angel said, I sometimes forget where I am. So the deputy said, fine, I'll look around, take someone with me, because it's really rough. So he looked around and he saw a friend that he'd known for several hundred years. And the two of them started flying down to the place called Land of Darkness. And when they got closer, the friend said, hey, wait a minute. You call this a land of darkness. This is the earth. what is called the earth. And the deputy said, yes, they call it earth. We call it land of darkness. We understand it better than they do. In fact, as a matter of fact, the deputy said, those people don't understand their own world at all. They're too close to it. So they went on down, and sure enough, it was quite dark down there. So they flew down, and they sat on top of a roof somewhere where they could see people going about their business and buying and trading and talking and crying and fighting and sulking and looking bored. I've described the world, haven't I? And making phony promises to each other. So the friend said to the deputy angel, well, what is this specific assignment that we have? And the deputy said, well, you'll understand that if you look down and see what all those people down there are doing. So the friend looked down, and he was shocked at what he saw. And he finally looked up at the deputy, and he said, well, how strange. Do you know what those people are doing down there? And the deputy said, sure, but you say it out loud. Maybe it'll relieve the shock a little bit. And the friend said, they are crying for sweets. See that woman down there? She's asked for an apple pie. See that man over there? He wants a chocolate cake. See that group of people over there? They're chanting for cookies. How strange. They're all crying for sweets. What's this all about? And the angel said, well, the other angel said, that's symbolic. I'll explain it for you later. The assignment, the deputy finally said, is this. We've been sent down here to do something that is very hard. We've been sent down here to find somebody who is asking for something else other than sweets, other than cakes and pies and donuts. We've been asked to do something that's going to take us a long time and a lot of hard work. We've been asked to search all around humanity down here and find an individual here, one over there, a man over here, a woman over there. We've been asked to find someone who's asking for something else. We've been sent down here to find that one person in 500,000 who's crying for light. See, friend, all those people down there crying for sweets, they don't know that this is the land of darkness. What they're doing is asking for sweets. What they're doing is asking for bigger cars and for ego victories. What they're doing is asking for excitements and entertainments. What they're doing is asking for proper self-images so that people will like them. They're looking around for love. This is their sweets. Instead of doing the right thing of asking for light, this is what they are asking for. So we've come down here to look around for the few people who are ready, the few who want something different than the clamor in which every individual in that crowd goes home. And he gets his piece of cake and he gets his bag of candy and he goes home and takes it, and then the next morning he has to come out into the street and do the same thing again. You know what the sweets of the world are? Well, personal question. What are yours? How about a little review of them? Again, hiding out? You want to play it safe? You play it safe and you'll look for someone to lead you and you will indeed end up in the swamp. We talked about crimes against ourselves, didn't we? And you had better, when you go home, you give some long pondering thought to the idea that your source of unhappiness, your source of feeling crushed, of being pressed down, that source is right within you and not in that world that you blame out there. Who do you think makes the economic system the way it is? It's called human beings. Who do you think causes the wars and the famines and the crimes, the exterior crimes? Who else but human beings? Oh, that was a pretty apt description, wasn't it? Calling it the the land of darkness. So you see, this is the way of the world, and you have to make up your mind right now. You have to make up your mind if you want to do what they're doing and get the same results that they are getting. Or are you going to be one of those very few human beings who says, this is it, this is enough, this is where I stop, I'm going to separate myself from those people. I'm going to sense in a small way the truth of the fact that I am living in a world of darkness. And that's the cause of my personal unhappiness and frustration. And I spread it around to other people that I meet. I understand that. I'm never going to ask for a sweets again, because I just have to get up the next morning and ask for another one. I'm going to begin to ask. This is your statement. I'm going to ask for something different. I'm going to ask for light. How about it? You understand that you're going to have to first see where you actually are before the cry can come up inside of you for something other than what the world cries for. Take another question to yourself, a very vital question. The question, see how this connects with the previous thoughts. Am I trying to find happiness in a mindful of ideas? The answer is yes. Of course you're trying to find happiness in ideas, in thought. Look at your mind right now while we're here together. Look at your mind 10 minutes ago before we started here, a week ago. Look how important thoughts are to you. I said thoughts are important to you. And what have they given you? One thought followed by another thought, one idea, one desperation after another desperation, one hope after another. And you've come right back to where you started. You have not got to the point yet where you understand that you are indeed living in the darkness of a mind that can't comprehend. A mind that has to remain on its own level. Therefore, something higher than that has to break you out of it. And that act comes, I've already explained it to you, comes when you look around and you see what other people are doing, and you have to say this, you listen to this, it's extremely vital to you. If I have to displease every other human being on this earth in order to find something higher and different, I am going to do it. I no longer care who I displease, because I am not going to please people who want to stay on their level of darkness and stumbling. I am tired of stumbling into other people and them stumbling into me in that darkness. You won't do that overnight. You won't do it in 5 minutes, because I know you. Shall I tell you how well I know you? You're afraid of everyone you meet. You look at another human face, man, woman, young or old, and you can't figure it out. Incidentally, that's because you can't figure out the inner person that's behind the face. If someone scowls, you get scared. How easy it is, how tragic it is that people in the world of darkness that we talked about are so easily frightened. How many times today were you scared? And so you look around for a sweet being something that's going to temporarily push away your fear. You read a book, or you sing a song, or you meet someone, a new friend or whatever, or you watch an exciting television show. That's your sweet. But you have to come back to it every morning. Why don't you get rid of the nonsense? The crime of a nonsensical life, why don't you get rid of it once and for all, so that you don't come fearfully face to face with yourself again and again and again each morning. You dread the morning, don't you? You cry out for the light, and those angel thoughts, those angel spirits will help you so that when you get up in the morning, you won't have enough time in the day to do the things you want to do. And what you want to do is wake up. What you want to do is escape the land of darkness. Oh, every second you're going to work throughout the day. You're not going to let anything take you away from saying, so I ran into that situation, I ran into that problem. I'm going to discover what I can learn from it. I fell down for a reason. Of course you did. You fell down because you didn't see what was in the path in front of you. You didn't see that log. From now on, you're saying this to yourself. I'm going to know a log when I see one. I'm not going to be gazing off to the left or off to the right. I'm not going to be in daydreams or mental movies. I'm going to look and see where I'm going. I'm going to study the logs inside my own mind. I'm going to watch how it operates so that I can understand it. So that I see when I'm tempted to go off into a sweet, to pick up a piece of cake or a piece of pie. I'm going to refuse it. Because I know there is something better than that, than a temporary relief of the pleasure of the taste of something sweet. You make that determination, and already you're beginning to break away from the ranks of ordinary men and women who just want to drift and dream and cry. And then, having cried, they make a dramatic production out of it. No more self-drama. Strict reality, the facts, the things. How's this for a phrase? We want to go after the things that can do us some good. How much simpler can we make it? Things that do us some good instead of things that harm us. Have you ever realized, for example, that every time you fear another human being, that's a crime against yourself, that you're harming yourself? Looking to your own mind, the way it is now constituted, the way it now operates, looking to your own mind to find fulfillment and naturalness is impossible. Here's a musician, played in several orchestras, and he's a great soloist. But he has to make a long trip without his musical instruments. Long trip down a long path, rocky hills. You'll see what I'm getting at in a minute. So the musician wanders down the wrong path, and it's a long, long road down there. And he's lonely, and he misses his music. So he says, if I only had some music to accompany me on this trip, it would be all right. This is his idea of sweetness. So a man comes up to him, and the stranger comes up to him, and the stranger says, I heard your plea for music, and I'm just the man you want to see. See this rock? This is a magic rock. If you hold it in a certain way, music will come from it, and you'll be accompanied by music all the trip. And he named a pretty stiff sum to pay for the rock. The musician was so lonely and scared and felt so isolated, he paid a lot of money, got the rock, and he walked along, and he tried to hold it this way, no music, held it this way, no music, held it that way. Another charlatan stranger came along, sold him a next rock. He held it that way, that way, that way, no music. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't get music from a rock. I don't care which way you hold it, whether you stamp on it, or throw it, or cuddle it, or paint it. You can't get music from a rock. Do you understand why you fail to live a natural life? You're looking to a rocky mind. You're looking to thoughts that can only lead you astray, that can't give you what you really want. Now, if the mind can't do it, if thoughts can't do it, what can? Here's your opportunity. You find out for yourself what's above the human mind. You find out for yourself whether there is something above the thoughts that you have trusted up till now in your life. I will tell you a fact. I will tell you, I know that there is something higher than ideas, than opinions, than beliefs, hardened beliefs. I will tell you there's something higher than opinions, than desperations. That something higher is called truth, with a capital T. It's called reality. Invite it and see how it changes you. How many of you are confused by life? Hands, please. How many of you dislike being confused? There's something wrong somewhere. Now, wait a minute. I asked who was confused, and you raised your hand, a number of you. Then I asked how many disliked it, and that's a contradiction. If you are confused, you love to be confused. Therefore, you don't dislike your confusion. You and your love are one, and you don't understand it yet, do you? Look, to be confused about yourself, about your identity, about what you're doing here, to be confused is the same thing as being separated, get this, hang on to it, is the same thing as being separated from God. To be confused is to be the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter out in the wilderness. Now, since it is possible to return from the wilderness back to your father's home, since it is possible to do that, and you haven't elected to do that, you love the wilderness, which is confusion. Now, there is no you loving your confusion. There's no identity here loving the state here. There is a fusion. There is the one thing. So that the only present identity you have is the identity of being a confused human being. Therefore, there is no hope at all for you as a confused human being to say, I am confused tonight, but tomorrow I am going to be clear. I am going to be free of confusion. If you say that, you are just saying that. And to say it is an idea talking. And ideas are confusions. So, unknown to you, unseen by you, confusion is promising clarity. That is what is called schizophrenia. That's what's called being paranoid. That's what's called being a confused human being who doesn't know that he's confused. If right now, all of a sudden, because you took away the blanket, if all of a sudden you understood what I am talking about, the light would come in and you would no longer be confused because you wouldn't be there. You want to be there as a confused human being. You love it. You are it are one. You won't give it up because you won't give up you. The only thing that you have is this fusion, this joining of darkness, which is you. You now. How do you break out then, since darkness can't cancel darkness? Look, question. There's another question for you. Are you willing to understand what I'm talking about? That part is not confused. That part is not a part of your old, cherished, stupid, stumbling identity and personality. The part that says, God help me, but I'm willing to see. I'm willing to understand, even if it means the end of me. Because my life in this land of darkness is not worth existing. It is not worth it. It's not life. I know it now. I called it life when I cried for the apple pie and for the candy, the new car, the compliment, the daydreams in which you can hide out at home and pretend that you're spiritual. Like you close your eyes like that, and you think the word God, and you think it is God, but thinking about God is not the presence of God. It's the presence of you thinking thoughts and speaking repetitious words and going into religious mental movies. God is not there. You are there. It is one or the other. You can't have you and God. See, you think you can. You think that you can remain you and have God, but all you can do is mutter God. Talk about it. Go to church. Sing hymns. How few will give up their delusion. How few will say, I am willing to let truth win. See, you're afraid that if you come too close to truth, that it will win. Aren't you? You're afraid it will win because you want to be the winner in your own mind. You're afraid you're going to get taken over. But what you fear is your own salvation. If you are confused here now, I want you to know that that is your first great love in life. And I want you to know that that is a heinous crime against yourself. You wouldn't let a robber rob your house. You wouldn't let a mugger jump out from a bush and attack you. And yet you freely permit your own delusions to attack you all your life. That is not only confusion, that is called maximum stupidity. If you open your mind, open your heart, and let all these truths come in, they will explain to you the words that you've heard tonight. And they will also make the Spirit stronger, because I know that the Spirit of truth is here right now. And I know that you sense it in a way, but you're afraid. Look, why are you afraid? You're afraid of losing the only thing you have, your precious confusion, which you call clarity. To lose all is to gain all. God himself invites you to prove that fact. God himself. Now, the real God, I'm talking about the real God now, the Spirit truth, something apart from our low-level mind, invites you and says, come and see what it's like. Come and see that there is nothing to fear by approaching the light. You are afraid now in the darkness, aren't you? All nod your head. You're afraid in the darkness. Now, how do you think you're going to get rid of that fear? You're not going to get rid of it by moving from one position to another position in the darkness. Stumbling from one corner of the great dark room to another dark room. The dark is in every corner of the room and in the center of it and every place else. How do you expect to get over fear? You are fear worshippers. I know you are. That's a precious possession. Don't you understand that fear is destruction? That it's darkness, that it has no life in it. Begin to desert fear. There is nothing to fear in you walking away from fear. And on the other side, when you finally stumble out of that dark building and get out into the light, here's what you'll do. After all the foolish time spent inside fighting the light, when you get outside, you'll open the door and you get outside, and you'll take a deep breath, and you'll nod your head, and you'll say, now I understand. Now everything is clear. There's a thought in one of the new booklets that goes something like this, as adapted to the subject of male-female relations. If a man fears a woman, what does that mean? Now, it can only mean one thing. It means that the man doesn't feel adequate in himself to understand and handle the woman. Therefore, he's not afraid of that woman. The fear is in him. He doesn't know what she wants from him. He doesn't know how she thinks. He doesn't know the difference that there might be between her friendly exterior and what he suspects she might have hostility in her. So he doesn't fear the woman at all. He's in fear and in one with his own misunderstanding, ignorance of how to proceed with a woman. Now, if he worked on himself and understood himself thoroughly, he would understand every one of the 2 billion women on earth. There are 4 billion people. I would assume 50% are women. Pretty good mathematics, huh? Yep. I can handle billions and arithmetically correctly. He will understand every single woman on earth. He will know how she thinks. He will know how afraid and insecure she is. And that man is the only man on earth who will be able to help those 2 billion women. See, the man is afraid of the woman. He stands there and he goes into small talk with her, and his eyes are twitching, and he's wondering if he's saying the impressive thing, and he hopes that she can't read his mind. Now, the woman looks back at him and reads him. She can tell his nervousness, his insecurity. She knows that he doesn't understand her. Now the devil in the woman starts working, because she gets a thrill out of the confused man's state. And she is going to make his fearful prophecies about her come true. She enjoys the power which that stupid man's weakness gave to her in the first place. Now look, I said that the man never really fears the woman. He is inadequate and he knows it, and that's because he's resisting truth. If he became knowledgeable of himself, he would become knowledgeable of the woman. And I will tell you, gentlemen, that every one of those 2 billion women would behave differently toward him. All 2 billion women would travel around the world to come and meet him, to find some man who's not a little balding little boy, who pleads with her. You men are pleaders with women, and that's why they have contempt for you. Your self-knowledge is self-strength. And you look at that woman, and you never, never, never look at her saying, I want something from you, lady. That's what she's been getting all her life. And she gets her little pack of tricks out and begins to work with them the minute she sees your weakness and your desire. The only way to handle a woman is to understand yourself, gentlemen. Don't try to understand her. You can't the way you are. All you can do is desire from her, fear her, etc. Self-knowledge first. There is only one right way to play the piano. One right way. There are rules governing the playing of a piano. There are 1,000 wrong ways to play the piano. Shift over to the inner life now. There is one fundamental truth. There are 10,000 ways to express that one truth, to practice it, to think about it rightly, to feel it, to live it. We give out in this class thousands and thousands of descriptions of the truth. All right. And then you're told to do hundreds of other things with it, whatever it would be. And in the maze of directions, you forget to play the scales, which is a fundamental thing, a basic thing for learning the right way to play the piano. Because of this principle of many ways to express, to teach, to learn the one truth, because of this, we forget to practice the 10,000 ways. We get lost. The mind isn't capable of grasping the different approaches. This means that you have to just apply yourself 1,000 times more diligently than you now do in order to get as many of the 10,000 techniques, lessons, devices to find the one single truth in order to become whole. So I want to mention one of them to you now. And when I mention it, I want you to think of the last time that you ever thought about it. I know you've heard it before. It's somewhere in your memory. But maybe it's been a year, 5 years since you've pulled it out of your mind and said, I'm going to think thoroughly about this. I'm going to practice the scales, a basic thing to do. I'm going to explore this whole thing from beginning to end and try to make connections with this thought, with other thoughts, with other ideas. By concentrating on one method, lesson at a time, your whole mind looks at it and begins to absorb it thoroughly so it can begin to work for you. So this is what I'm going to do right now. Here's the lesson. Becoming a different kind of a man or a woman, becoming whole, is a matter of subtraction, not addition. Heard it before? one way or another? Of course you have. When's the last time that you sat down and wrote that out? Wholeness comes through subtraction, not addition. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put that under a microscope and look at it very carefully. First of all, look what's implied in it. What's implied is that there is something we have to get rid of, something we have to subtract. All right, so it's not, all right, now the other side. It's not addition, therefore I don't have to gain anything for the me. Anything I gain for Vernon or Leland or Stella, anything I add to them is only going to take me farther away from spiritual wholeness. So I have to be very careful at the start that I look and see what I'm doing in my daily behavior to make sure that I'm not unknowingly adding something to Vernon, Leland, Stella. Because every time I do that, I make it harder to understand what it means that I should subtract and not add. So, look what we have already. We're going to have to look very closely at every thought, every idea. Look what work this is. Marvelous work, beautiful work. But look at the labor in it. The watchfulness, the sentry must be there every second to catch that littlest of remark, that littlest of facial expression toward another member of this class or someone out where you work. Maybe that little gesture or facial expression is an addition to the pseudo-invented self that is causing me to be separated from reality. I have to see then what it means to add. If I see what it means to add and see how I wasted energy making that little gesture, movement to someone, if I can see that that is adding to me, therefore to my grief, if I see it, I now say, wait just a minute. This has been my whole life. Every day I have been doing that, compromising with people, fawning with them. I now see what it means to add to false personality. I will guarantee you something absolute. If you really know what you're doing against yourself by fawning, by pretending to like someone, by deceiving yourself, if you see it, it stops. Seeing is everything. All right. We have now arrived at this position where we see what addition is, and we see we can't afford it anymore. Now we know what subtraction is, isn't it? Subtraction really means that I subtract, generally speaking, everything wrong that has been making me what I supposed I was. After a while, if I don't add, which is the same as subtracting, getting rid of the trash, throwing the trash out of your house. If I cease to add, that leaves the house empty, doesn't it? Throw out all the trash. I get trash barrels, baskets all over the house, every room. I throw them out. The house begins to be empty. Therefore, something new can come in. But you will be scared to throw out all the trash baskets because you're not used to living in inner cleanliness, innocence. You are not used to being without clutter. It disturbs you to have a clean house because on every bit of paper in the trash baskets all over your house, on every bit of paper is something that relates to what you call you. There's an old bill in there, the tax bill, $500. And when you got that bill, you looked at it and you were indignant at what society and what's the government and what's the tax grabbers are doing to you. $500. Last year it was only $200. And you're mad, right? And you pay it or you lose your house, because there's always a threat. Government always threatens punishment if you don't follow their insanity. It can't exist without threat of punishment. Can't. Absolutely not. The whole house then is filled with that item. It also has a little box that says chocolate cake on it. How many of you like chocolate cake? Coconut cake? All right, we'll settle for chocolate. There's a box that says chocolate cake on it. And you just love chocolate cake. This is one of your sweets, right? That box is in one of the trash barrels. And you're thinking about the next piece of chocolate cake you can have, and you wonder if it's proper to have a slice of chocolate cake for breakfast. That doesn't quite hit you right, doesn't it? Does it? But you kind of would like to have it anyway and defy society. So that is in the box. You now think, while I'm talking, of all the other bits of trash that you have scattered around your house that you don't want to throw out. Because you say, if I do that, it's throwing out me. That's true. That's all you've got. All you've got is a chocolate cake memory and a bitter memory over a $500 tax bill. Do you have the courage to toss it out and see what happens? If you want to watch yourself in action, change the kind of a human being you are, you go into your house, your mental house, your emotional house, your psychic system. You go into it and take one little trash basket, pick it up, carry it outside, put it out where it'd be carried away. And watch, the grief and the sorrow and the pain that you feel with just one little tiny trash basket that you take out there. This is known as, listen to this, in esoteric literature, this is known as the valley of the shadow of death. You understand that? You connect that, right? This is known as going through the travail of losing yourself. Look, we weep when reality says, throw out the trash and I'll give you gold. All lost human beings are human beings who are afraid of losing the little bits of paper with their name, their memory inscribed on it in some way, printed on it in some way. If you really want to be a rare human being, you begin to follow these 110,000 techniques for becoming a whole person. You take one little trash basket and throw it out as an experiment in conscious nervousness. Why do you get nervous at anything at all in your daily contacts with the world? You get nervous, as we discussed just last night. The real reason you get nervous is because you can't reach into your memory and find a familiar way of reacting to it. Or you have 50 ways of reacting and you don't know which one will serve your false self-interest best. And so you get nervous looking around which one, and finally you grab one, and just by pure accident, it's what you call right or wrong. Be willing to be a very rare man or woman who, in not defying society alone, but defying the voice in you that threatens to make you nervous and chaotic if you start to subtract. If you subtracted everything wrong inside you, if you threw out all the trash baskets, here's a question I'm asking you which you won't be able to answer. if you threw out all the trash, which is nothing but self-reference, who would you be? You don't know the answer to that, do you? You can think about it, and if you think about it, you'll say, I hope. I hope I'm a new person. I hope I'm free of my troubles. You don't want to be free of your troubles. You're so comfortable stumbling. You're so comfortable stumbling around the house in the dark, bumping into that trash barrel, and that reminds you of the bill or the chocolate cake, and you say, you see, I have evidence that I exist. And what I heard at that class about not having a separate independent existence, that isn't true. Because I know that I exist. For one thing, I'm a crab. Some identity. For another thing, I have my rights against the tax grabbers. Oh, I'll tell you. I ask a question, and I know the answer to this, and so do you. How do you ever get through to anyone in this world, including the people in this room and listening to this talk? How do you get it through to anyone that you are not that person described by the trash in the barrels? You are not that. Be willing to see that you must subtract in order to get rid of your pain. But the pain and the identity that you like from the trash barrels are the same thing. Give up you. Listen to this. Please listen to this. Give up you as you now describe yourself, see yourself. Give up you, I will absolutely guarantee you 100%, you'll never have another trouble, problem, worry in this whole world. Why does any human being hesitate then? She hesitates to go into this work of subtracting. Listen carefully. The reason people don't get rid of their problems, the trash basket, listen, is the fear of non-existence. See, you have defined existence as being a person who's lonely, who's hopeful of the future, who remembers how nice it was when you were a little girl, a little boy, and you went to the picnic, and Mama and Papa took care of you, and Aunt came over and gave you a nice sandwich that you liked. See, you are describing yourself every minute up here in your mind. And when we say subtract that, you fear non-existence, because this is all you have. No human being ever drops, I'll change it. No human being ever takes all the trash baskets out at once. It's a back and forth trip. There are 100 inside the house, small and large. One little trip at a time is all you'll be able to take, but you have to start with the first one. Here's the first one. You are uncomfortable in the company of some other person, anyone, boss, fellow employee, relative, someone you live with in your own home. You're uncomfortable with this person. Now, usually you add something in dealing with this person with whom you are uncomfortable. You add a certain way of dealing with him or her. You have certain little words, certain little phrases, certain attitudes, like trying to appease him or her, or shouting at him. You have a certain pattern of responses and aggressive activities toward this person. Now, these are your additions somewhere. You picked up the idea that in order to be safe and secure with yourself, that you have to deal with this person in a certain way. But look how it tires you. Look, if you're carrying a knight in armor, walking around on the ground, carrying that heavy armor and a sword here and a spear here and an axe there, carrying all this weight. Isn't that what you're doing? Carrying all these additions of how to behave toward that troublesome person? That's an addition. The knight has to throw off the armor and throw down the sword. And you have to start taking that one little small basket of how to behave toward that troublesome person. And you know, if you have false actions toward another person, you have them because you're afraid of him. Now remember last night? You're not really afraid of him, but you're afraid of your own inadequacy, weakness in dealing with him. Therefore, it's you that you have to be concerned with, not him at all. No one, look, here's another of the 10,000 exercises. No one can scare you. You scare yourself by being apart from reality. All right. You have seen the addition, a set of behaviors, of attitudes. Someone you dislike, you don't like to be around them, but by circumstances you have to write a letter to them, maybe for practical reasons, or you even have to live with them. These are your additions. Now, there is no spiritual law in the universe that says you have to continue carrying the burden of these additions around with you, no matter who you contact or where you live. There is no, listen to me, there is no law that says you have to continue, you have to endure. But there is a law, the one single law of becoming whole, that says you, by subtracting yourself, can be unafraid of him, unafraid of yourself, and unafraid of the whole world in general. Now that's the easy part. The knowledge which you're acquiring here today is the easy part. The hard part, the scary part, is to do what you know. To act on the knowledge, to make it personal, to say, all right, I heard that talk about subtracting so that there's nothing there anymore that behaves wrongly. I heard that. Now, I also heard that there has to be a personal spiritual initiative on my part to find one little tiny place where I can say, I am not going to add my false, fawning behavior anymore in front of this person. I'm going to experiment to try to see what it means to be real instead of phony and contriving. Haven't you noticed the sigh, the weariness, the sadness of going into your additional role every time? It's the same thing as every time you meet that person. You're not aware of this. I'm trying to make you conscious of it. You're not aware that every time you see that person coming, you wearily pick up the heavy armor, knight's armor. You know how heavy those things must have been. And you put it on, and already you're sagging. You put on the helmet, and you pick up the sword. You pick up the spear. And you pick up the shield so that he won't hurt you. Now look, listen. The next time you confront an uncomfortable situation or human being, I want you to see for yourself, this is the personalization we're talking about, I want you to see yourself reaching for that cumbersome, wearisome armor in order to do two things: attack if necessary or defend if necessary, which means you're living on the opposites of the intellect. If you didn't pick up the armor, you wouldn't have to attack or defend. It wouldn't be involved in it. And this is what we're getting at. But here's an original point of about 2 minutes ago. See the weariness that your spirit suffers from one time a day, 10 times a day, 50 times a day. If you see it once out of the 50 times a day, really see it. Oh boy, the pause that you're going to have in your emotional and mental and psychic flow, that mad rushing river is going to slow down just a little bit, and the slowing down of it enables you to see it for the first time. In a mad rushing river, the dam breaks and the river flows on down, everything before it. The river doesn't know it's a river, does it? A river doesn't have any intelligence to know it's a flooding river, hurting everything and even hurting itself, its own natural flow. A river doesn't know it. You don't know it. When you attack, when you defend, you have no consciousness of it. And you're sitting here now not understanding what I'm talking about. Therefore, it can't penetrate, but you must be receptive so it penetrates. So you suddenly say, you know, I came to that class for 5 years, 7 years, and for the first time at 9:25 on this Saturday morning, for the first time I understand that I have been unconscious all my life. I've never understood anything. Oh, I couldn't play the piano. I was just learning how to play the piano. And I now see, when I put my fingers on the piano keyboard there and it made an awful racket, I was kidding myself into thinking that I was playing a beautiful selection in a beautiful way. And even other people in the next room heard the racket and wondered, what's that? I call that beautiful music because I'm an egotist, because I want to believe in myself, because I think I have to believe in myself. And you'll sit there at that piano, inwardly speaking, you'll sit there in utter shock and disbelief, and at the same time, listen to this, at the same time, the most pleasurable feeling you have ever had in your whole life. And you wonder how you could have been so foolish as to take pleasure in the chocolate cake and in the bill that you growled about. You wonder how you could ever been so stupid as to select the self that was greedy and angry and hostile and jealous. How you could have settled for that identity. Boy, I'll tell you. If you ever, in deep, clear self-revelation, say to yourself, how could I have ever been so idiotic? If you say that with feeling, you are beginning to break out. You are beginning to see where you always were. And when you see where you always were, you now know where you are now, which is still not a great musician at the piano, but beginning to play out simple melodies at the start, simple little things. You now know that the technique is one thing, that is, for playing the piano, playing the scales, that hearing all the methods for becoming whole, for becoming an inner musician with great harmony, you understand that all these methods certainly are necessary. But there reaches a point when you must see that your knowledge, listen, your knowledge must never connect with you. If you connect knowledge with an I, with a self, that is called ego identification with words, with facts. And now you'll sit at that piano and hammer out junk and noise, and you'll tell yourself and everyone else that you're playing a beautiful melody, playing a piano beautifully. And you don't know because you can't see how you've deceived yourself. A person learning to play the piano if they recognize noise is noise, junk is junk, trash is trash, if they hear it and they see it, their hands are going to go like that. They are not going to add more junk, more noise to the piano and to themselves. At the moment you say, this is as far as I'm going, and lying to myself, if you say that to yourself, this is as far as I'm going and lying, truth will hear that. Truth will say, now I can go ahead. Now something can be done for this individual, because he's beginning to understand that he never did have any individuality in that way. All he was a mad musician calling himself a concert pianist. The shock you experience when you see that you've been adding to your neurosis, adding to your misery, when you really see it, the shock that you experience is a healing shock, not a disturbance in the old way. The shock must come to you, and if you're at all wise, if you've experienced one shock on Monday, you'll say, I'm going to try for 5 shocks on Tuesday. Then I'm going to try for 10 on Wednesday. I am not going to spare myself at all. Come on, come on, bring on the trouble, bring on anything. I want to use everything to learn how to really grow, to learn how to subtract everything that has made me what I am today, so that I can be someone different tomorrow. Someone that I don't have to think about, so I don't have to have a sword or a shield at all. Because truth needs no protection, doesn't need to be aggressive. Truth is safe. And when I'm a part of truth, you are effortlessly safe, and you are safe forevermore. Take a 10-minute break. Something in this life is overwhelmingly important to you. Oh, how sad. Let me tell you what it is, fundamentally. What is important to you is everything that reminds you of you. Outside of that one fundamental love, self-love that you have, there are thousands of connections, as we discussed for about a half hour earlier. The paramount interest that you have in life is you. Again, what a tragedy. Now I'm going to tell you how to correct it. How you correct it is having a change in values. You make a change in values by beginning, as awkward as you do it at the start, by beginning, listen to me. All of you, every one of you in this room and listening to this tape. The most important thing in your life should be what you're hearing in this room. Nothing else has permanent value at all. Look where your attention is. See where you're wasting that natural energy and wondering how you can make a few extra dollars. Look at the energy you're wasting and worrying over your physical appearance. Wondering why you're not young instead of older. Worrying about the future. What are you doing with yourself? I know what's important to you, and I'll tell you what it is. And here's one of the shocks you can take. What is of vital importance to you is your own self-destruction. I am telling you, that is a fact. I sit here and I see it, I know it, I understand it. And I know that you don't know what you're doing. I know that you're asleep in the canoe. lying down with your head on the pillow, lie low in the canoe while it's drifting toward the waterfall, out of control. And you're dreaming while in the canoe that you're safely on shore having a delightful picnic. I am trying to wake you up from your dream because you don't know that you're dreaming. You're in the canoe dreaming and you don't know it right now. Only the truth can begin to shake you awake and get you out of that state that just loves to have your head on the pillow. You know how hard it is to get up in the morning sometimes? If it's cold and you're tired and just plain lazy and because you're afraid of the world. Truth tries to shake you awake and get your head, get your head up a little bit so you can sit up, and if you sit up and you see where you are. When you see where you are, you're going to grab that paddle and row like mightily toward the shore. But you have to wake up and see where you are before you grab the paddle and frantically and energetically paddle toward shore where real safety is. If you don't come to every class you possibly can, look what you do against yourself. Can you see it? The people that you value, they don't care about you at all. They can't. They also are in their canoes, lying down flat with their head on the pillow, dreaming that they're in love, dreaming that all is well, looking forward to the next big TV series. Please, the only entity that really loves you, and I'm talking about love in the real sense now, the only entity that loves you is truth, reality, God. No one else can love you. The impossible sleeping people are hostile people pretending to be loving. The only entity, person, force, power that really knows what you need and want is something higher than you and your friends. Now I'm talking about this class. I can't understand. See if you can understand why you put anything in this whole universe before coming here and learning how to become an eternal person. Can you begin to subtract somewhere so that you can see what you're doing and see what you're not doing for yourself? Don't forevermore permit anything, whatever, including and especially yourself. Don't let another person, don't let yourself, don't let anything keep you from attending every single class that you possibly can. This is your only hope. Now I know some of you, maybe new people here, may live at a distance, maybe live in another state. I understand that, and you have to live there. All right, in that case, be in this class as close as you can with the books and the tapes and keep in contact with us. Write Joan every once in a while. Stay in contact. You are in danger as you drift away. You are in danger, but you won't see it. You won't know it. I am telling you. Nothing in your life is more important for you to come here so that you can be healed by God. Nothing, what you name it, but you still think there is, and this is your old nature deceiving you. We point out in this room how you're deceived, how you're tricked, how you're hoaxed, how you're bluffed, how you're misled. We point it out, and then you begin to see it, and then you say, I don't want to go down that path to the swamp anymore. I've been down it. I've thrashed around in the swamp miserably all my life. I struggle out a little bit, and I fall back again. We will tell you how to get out of it altogether. Conclusion. Nothing in this world, in this life, is more important than you absorbing what is given here. Nothing is more important to you and for you than the truth which changes the kind of a person you are. And you can feel the change as you experience it. And I will see it on your faces and in your attitudes. I will know that you have caught your first glimpse of reality. This is the only beauty there is in life. You want something really beautiful? Come to every class, absorb, study, let truth change you. A little open discussion for a minute. Why is the following statement pure spiritual darkness? I am not worthy of God's grace. Why is that darkness?
The thought self is talking to itself, and it doesn't even exist.
Whoever.
Everything centers around me.
There is a judgment as to who they think is supposed to be in.
Yeah. See the identity? I'm not worthy. I am I, but I'm not. Amy.
Yeah, I'd rather be not worthy of God's grace than not be anything.
Exactly.
It is only my idea, and purely an idea, that is separating me from God.
As long as I think like that, there will be me and the separate God.
Yeah, correct.
I am more intelligent than God in judging my own worthiness.
That's not bad.
The door to heaven is always open.
Pardon?
The door to heaven is always open.
All right.
It's a clever means of keeping you from having to do any work on yourself.
Say that again.
It's a clever means of keeping you from having to do any work on
That's
yourself.
a good addition. That was kind of an original approach.
There is fear of God, and in this way you keep yourself separate, distant.
Yeah.
At least I'm somebody.
At least I'm somebody. Gene?
It's a torment of yourself.
Self-torment. That's good.
No, we have no idea what grace is.
One more.
It's the dark self speaking.
Dark self-speaking.
It's based on a preconceived idea of what God is.
Correct. Gene, come up, please. Most human beings can no longer hear their own cry of despair.
Right.
Talk about a forlorn state where you're no longer able to hear yourself cry out.